Okay, hello everybody. My name is Amanda Pauly. I am Deputy Editor at Professional Beauty and welcome to today's Professional Beauty webinar. So today we're going to be giving you an intimate waxing 101. So anything that you want to know about perfecting your intimate waxing technique, we are going to help you do that. Today we've got two very special speakers who are absolute experts in everything waxing. We've got Andy Rouillard, who some of you may know as the Wax Daddy and is the founder of HCM Academy. And we also have Sam Marshall, who is the owner of the Beauty Guru in Manchester. So you guys might recognize these two speakers. They speak at Professional Beauty a lot for us because they really do know everything about this subject matter. So they are going to be talking to you about why intimate waxing is such a great service to have in your business, covering contraindications, common troubleshooting issues, and then there will be a Q&A at the end. So if you do have any questions for our speakers, if you just put it in the chat box to the right, if you're on the webinar, or if you're watching through Facebook, if you just comment in the comment box, we will do our absolute best to get the questions over to Andy and Sam. So Andy and Sam, I'm going to let you guys take it away and I will see you in a little bit. But thanks so much, guys.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I'm Andy Rouillard, as Amanda said. Some of you may know me as the Wax Daddy. I've been waxing for, coming up to 20 odd years. That's longer than I care to imagine. Waxed more scrotums than I've had hot dinners, apparently. Run the Axiom Men's Grooming Salon in Basingstoke and the Axiom Wax Academy Training School as well. And I'm here with the lovely Sam.
Hello. So I'm Sam Marshall. I've got a brand called the Beauty Guru. I run a salon in Media City in Manchester, and I also do female intimate waxing training, male intimate waxing training, beginners waxing training. So I train for Andy, and then I also do my own female courses. And I've been waxing for 23 years now, which is really, obviously, I started very young.
Were you allowed to wax when you were 14 years old?
I know, yeah.
So there's nothing quite like a webinar to make us feel old, right? But here we are.
I know.
Today's webinar is designed as an introduction, really, to the wonderful world of intimate waxing. So for those of you who aren't already offering the service, but perhaps thinking about offering it, hopefully we'll be able to answer some of the more frequently asked questions that we get asked. Put your mind at rest if you've got any concerns and convince you of the many, many reasons of why intimate waxing is so wonderful and why you should be offering it in your salon if you're not already. For those of you who are already offering it, and I can see the names flicking up the side, loads of names that I recognize, so I know lots of you are already offering this, so hopefully it will be an opportunity for us to share some good practice with you. Now we have a little presentation, and this is where I feel a little bit like my dad learning how to use the VCR for the first time. Oh, look at that. Fancy. Okay, so we've got a little bit of a presentation for you. We're going to run through these slides nice and quickly, and then there'll be an opportunity for some questions and answers at the end. So we're going to start with a little bit of background, a little bit of a history lesson. And for those of you whose eyes went straight to David Beckham, my eyes are here, ladies and gentlemen. And we'll come to David Beckham in a moment, but we'll start with a little bit of background. Some of you will already know this, but legend has it that Brazilian waxing, as we know it, first came to the widespread attention of the American public back in the early 90s, when a group of 7 Brazilian-born sisters, called the J Sisters, introduced a daring extended bikini line wax to their New York beauty salon. And it was designed with the high-cut thong-style swimwear of their native Brazil in mind. Now, we know that this style of waxing had been carried out by salons and therapists all over the world for many years before that. In fact, I've got friends in the industry who have been waxing much longer than me, who used to joke that their customers used to call it, can you take a bit more off wax? So, we know people were doing it for a long time before that. But because the J Sisters were based in New York, they attracted a bit of media attention and some celebrity clientele. I think Gwyneth Paltrow, I believe, has a signed photo up in the wall of their old salon with the words, "You changed my life." So there you go, the power of intimate waxing. Who'd have thought it? And because of this, attracted media attention, got the public's attention, and this is where we get the name Brazilian waxing from. Now, apparently, if you go to Brazil, they don't call it Brazilian waxing, it's just bikini waxing, but there we go. The rest of the world, we call it Brazilian waxing. Now, for whatever reason, the J sisters didn't introduce a male version until several years later, and they called this a sunga wax. And a sunga is essentially a skimpy swimsuit for guys in Brazil of the same name. Now, that name didn't catch on. We have the Brits to thank for the name that a lot of us call it now, the old back, sack and crack, which is a horrible expression. But if we fast forward a few years to 2004, some of you will remember a program on Channel 4 called The Salon. And this was one of the first kind of fly on the wall documentaries, kind of looking at the day-to-day goings on of a hair and beauty salon. And very famously, or infamously I should say, late one night they broadcast a pubic denuding of some poor chap, and the next day the British media just went crazy for this. They'd never seen anything quite like it before. It was all over the papers, and it was the British media who coined the term back, sack and crack. So it's like I said, I'm not a big fan of the expression. It doesn't really describe what we do for a start, but it does trip quite nicely off the tongue, and we do still get people kind of phoning up or emailing and asking for this. But this is where we get the name from. I seem to remember at the time, and I'm sure Sam will remember this as well, it was treated really as a bit of a joke at the time, a bit of a ha-ha giggle factor. There were salons, people like myself, who were offering the service, but it wasn't really taken very seriously at the time. We have David Beckham to thank for that. Fast forward again, 2008, January 2008, I think it was. Oh, Golden Balls himself starred in an Armani underwear advert. And for those of you who have forgotten what the advert looks like, I've put a handy reminder down in the bottom left of the screen there. Just feast your eyes on that for a second. This calls for a moment of silence. All hail Sir David and his sock in his pants by the looks of it. So aside from a suspiciously kind of groinal area, shall we say, he also had suspiciously smooth thighs. Now, whether Victoria had been at him with the Veet or a big razor the night before, or it was just his marketing team, a bit of clever airbrushing skills in Photoshop that kept his legs looking so smooth, the Beckhams never confirmed one way or another. But what this did do was reignite media interest, and I remember it very well. It was all over the papers again, on internet forums. Everywhere was rife with speculation. Has Beckham gone Brazilian? Has Golden Balls got smooth balls? All of it must have been a slow news week, right? But all of this kind of thing going on. And I'd never really placed much faith in celebrity endorsement until that point. But no word of a lie, for about a week afterwards, the phone rang off the hook, the email pinging left, right and centre, not just from clients who were wanting to get this done, but other salons who were having the same thing. They were having clients, guys ringing up, phoning, emailing, wanting to have this treatment done. It was almost as if Beckham had made it acceptable. He'd removed the taboo. Guys who had perhaps never considered any form of manscaping whatsoever up until this point, let alone intimate waxing, suddenly thinking to themselves, well, if it's good enough for Beckham. So thank you, David. We thank you. We salute you for this. Again, kind of around the same sort of time, Habia, who are the people who set the standards for our industry, introduced for the first time a set of national occupational standards for male and female intimate waxing. So they established a benchmark essentially for therapists wanting to offer this service, and that also forms the basis for qualifications on the national qualifications framework at a level 3 for intimate waxing, and also kind of the foundations for private training schools such as ourselves who are offering this service. So this kind of brings us bang up to date, really. It's no longer treated in such a jokey manner. It's treated a little bit more seriously. The giggle factor has gone from it. You open any kind of magazine, look at any kind of web forum, anything like that, the guys are all talking about it. The girls have been doing it for a lot longer than the guys, obviously. As with most things, you ladies got in there before we did. So let's have a little look at some of the reasons why people will get this done. It's kind of this why, which is the most common question. I get asked that a lot, actually, usually in the pub by people who don't get any waxing done at all when they find out what I do for a living. They kind of have this curiosity as to why on earth people would want to get intimate waxing done. And I think there's this misconception, myself and Sam were talking about this the other day, that it's all going to be young guys or young women, bodybuilders, athletes, those sorts of things. And actually, that does make up a portion of the demographic, but really it's all ages and all backgrounds. And the reasons people get it done are as many and diverse as the clients themselves. So if you're going to start thinking about your marketing and offering this to clients, it just helps to look at some of the reasons why people will get this done. So top of the list, I've got comfort and freshness there. And this is probably the number one reason that people share with us as therapists and trainers, especially the guys. For them, often they say it feels fresher, cooler, more comfortable, especially during the hotter summer months, the summers that we've had, the baking hot summers we've had for the last couple of years. Some people find it can help with body odor, and especially for the guys, we do tend to have a little bit more hair around the back end, shall we say. So waxing the bottom can make it easier to keep the area clean. I'll leave that point there. I think your imaginations will do the rest. Sports-related benefits. Again, this is another big one, particularly among swimmers, athletes and cyclists. It's incredibly popular. Hairless skin can have advantages in terms of comfort and performance. It can reduce chafing, for example. That doesn't just go for intimate waxing, it goes for body waxing as well. But again, not just swimmers and cyclists, athletes, those are the common ones, but wrestlers, bodybuilders, dancers, rowers, really it's got a huge potential market there in the sporting community. So Sam, I'm going to pass over to you now.
So body art, tattoos. I don't think there's many people around now, not a huge amount of people, that don't have tattoos. It seems to be something that's the norm, whereas 10 years ago it was kind of like, oh, you've got a tattoo. And I think most guys will agree that tattoos look better without hair growing out of them. So maybe if they've got a sleeve, or I've even seen people with leg tattoos where they shave the hairs around there. Something that makes total sense to me is if your client's going for like a sleeve tattoo, to maybe wax them before they go, because the tattoo is shave them. So that could be a great link up with a local tattoo parlor, who usually also do body piercing. And I think if you're going to that effort of kind of adorning your body with all these things, you probably don't want hair growing over it and covering it up. We do have quite a few pierced clients that come for waxes, which is always quite an eye-opener. And then another thing is culture and lifestyle. So this covers quite a broad spectrum of things. Things like the Asian community, the Muslim faith requires for the women to remove their pubic hair. And then the men, I believe, they have to take it down to their thumbnail on their armpits and groin. Is that right, Andy?
I believe it's religiously sanctioned, basically. So the removal of underarm hair, groin hair is kind of sanctioned in Islam. So yeah.
Yeah. So that's a great kind of a great reason to get people in, if and often they'll tell their friends and family and things like that. And then also another thing, this doesn't really cover under cultural lifestyle, but the trans community. If you can offer male and female intimate waxing, then it means that it doesn't really matter what genitals your client has when they pop on the couch. Often we need to know for timing, and trans is a whole nother subject that we can cover another time. But I have had clients where I've known them for a while. I haven't obviously asked what genitals they've got, because that's like me asking any of you what yours look like. But when they've come, then I can do either, because I'm trained in both. That's been quite handy. And then also we've got maybe naturists, models, adult workers. Lots of people will remove their pubic hair for various other reasons. And I think it really is the norm quite a lot now to just whip it all off. And then another thing is, well, we've got the optical inch with the chaps. So apparently if you remove the grass, the trees look bigger. And then also heightened sensitivity. So you can interpret that as how you will. But apparently it does make things feel a little bit better. Back over to you, Andy, on that.
Oh, thanks for that. Yeah, pass back over to that point. But yeah, absolutely, it can help with that enhanced sensitivity, spice things up in the bedroom a little bit. It can be a partner preference. It might just be something that the client's other half prefers. People are doing it for their other half. I not so much anymore, but certainly when I started, I used to have an awful lot of wives, girlfriends and partners phoning up and booking their other halves in, and their poor partner would turn up thinking they were coming to get a nice massage or something, and then there I was with my gloves and my spatula. Hop yourself up on the table. So some of them had a little bit of a surprise. Doesn't happen quite so much anymore. You know, the guys are doing it for themselves now, which is good. So we've got partner preference as well, and of course the improved confidence, that look good, feel good factor. Again, not just for intimate waxing, for general body waxing as well. We find that if people perhaps found their hair to be unattractive for whatever reason, just having that hair removed, manscaped, or whatever, can help improve their self-esteem and confidence. So there are very, very practical reasons that people want to get this done as well. And Sam, you were saying earlier, that a lot of people are getting it done anyway. It's kind of something that has really crossed over into the mainstream, which brings us on to the sort of things that you might want to think about if you're considering offering this as a service.
So customer demand. With women, I think it's pretty easy, isn't it? I mean, most women remove their pubic hair, and I think even from kind of late teens, especially if girls have got older sisters or something like that, they're kind of just shaving it off. And also, when I started offering intimate waxing back in 2004 in Manchester, I learned before that in Australia. It was a bit risky. It was saucy. They'd be like, "Oh, you're going for one of those Brazilians." And if I mention that to my kind of 18, 19-year-old students now, they look at me in horror because they're like, "What? It's normal. It's not. It's not something sexual. It's something that's just." It's just kind of the norm. It's what we do, and it's part of our general grooming, isn't it? I think really. And then I think with guys, it's becoming more acceptable, as Andy mentioned before, and I think it tends to be for me kind of like middle-aged men that come to me for the male intimate. I think it's something they search online, and then they often will kind of find it that way, and they won't talk about it so much, which is a bit of a shame, really. Whereas women will just tell everyone, won't they?
Yeah, there's that locker room culture with guys. So we've got that stereotype, haven't we, of that Sex in the City kind of situation where you've got all the girls kind of sat around having breakfast mimosas and talking about their intimate wax. I don't think that's necessarily the reality for a lot of people, but certainly for guys, we have this locker room culture where people do talk about it amongst their people who have a shared interest. So the sporting community is a big example, good example of that. You go on any of the health forums, the cycling forums, the bodybuilding forums, they're all talking about hair removal, the best methods of hair removal, recommendations, not just for waxing, but things like spray tans, where to get their uniforms from, their sports kit from. So that's where people the guys do tend to talk about it with other chaps in a safe environment, an environment that they feel comfortable with. That idea of birds of a feather flock together. I mean, the fact is, you open up, like I said earlier, any magazine, you switch on the TV. If you think back to Love Island, I mean, the guys didn't seem to have a single chest hair between them. So it is something that's out there, and a lot of people are looking for the service. Having said that, if you don't have the client base, if your client demographic doesn't fit, then don't feel pressured, don't feel like you have to offer it. A lot of salon owners sometimes will contact me and say, do we have to offer men's intimate waxing? And I'm like, no, of course you don't. It's something that you want to have to offer, which kind of brings it on to the next point, the safety and well-being of staff issue. It's probably one of the biggest concerns that people have, therapists have, especially around the male intimate waxing side of things, that they're potentially going to be opening their business to the wrong type of client. And I have to say, hand on heart, in nearly 20 years, it's incredibly rare that happens. I kind of always think to myself, we've got the client's scrotum in one hand and hot wax in the other, and it's a very foolish male client who misbehaves under those circumstances. It just doesn't tend to happen. There will always be people that are looking for treatments, whether it's massage or whatever, for the wrong reasons. But we're going to come onto this in a little bit. We're going to talk about how you can protect yourself and your business. It is a consideration, and you do have to think about the happiness and the willingness of your staff team to offer this. If you have a team that don't really want to offer, it might be that you need to do some work around that, kind of discuss their concerns, any issues that they might have around it. There might be religious reasons that they don't want to do it, for example. Their partner might not feel comfortable with them doing it. Lots of different reasons there. And ultimately, you know, you have to have therapists who want to offer this service. The best therapists that I've trained are ones who have volunteered themselves to come forward and do the training. There's nothing worse than entrusting your bits and bobs in the hands of a nervous or resentful therapist, let's be honest.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I find that people either, when I've asked my team before, it's either a yes or a no straight away. There isn't a kind of like, oh, I'm not sure. It's kind of like, no, I don't want to do it, rabbit in the headlights. Or it's like, yeah, actually, yeah, I'd like to learn to do that. And I think I talked about this a while ago when there was that, there was the story about the trans lady in Canada who was going to various people. And I think it's really important that your therapists are comfortable doing things. And if they choose that they don't want to handle male genitals, I think that should be, it's okay. You know, they should do what they want to. And some therapists don't even want to do female intimate, especially when they're quite young. Which again, I think it should be the choice of the therapist if they want to handle people's crown jewels, as you say. So products are really, really important with this. And I think between Andy and I, we've probably tried every single wax there is out there in the world. When I learned to do this initially, so I keep waving my pencil around, it was in Sydney in Australia, and they taught me with strip wax. Oh my God, the pain. It's so uncomfortable. You can rip skin off, you can make people bleed, you can tear labia. So a decent peelable, flexible wax is really important. And I think to get a good wax, it's a balance between not being too hot, not being too thick, so it takes ages to set, being able to work with it, being cost effective, because as a salon owner, you've definitely got to think about your costs. And you don't want to be spending £10 per wax on a Brazilian. And then also having some really great products to support it. So I personally love a gel cleanser. I love an oil. I love a powder as well, especially in the summer when we get a little hot and sticky. And a really lovely kind of a soothing after wax cream. But there's a lot of great products and great waxes on the market as well. I just want to touch on that. I don't think there's ever the best. There's just the right one for you. So it's really good to try a few different ones, look for recommendations. And look at recommendations from waxes, not from just from brands kind of saying that theirs is the best, because there's lots of good ones. Andy, training and insurance.
Yeah, so just to kind of come back to the products issue, it's I've seen a lot of sort of recommendations scrolling up on the right hand side there. I'm sorry we can't answer all of your questions straight away. We're going to get to them at the end of the presentation, but I've seen lots of people recommending some really, really great brands. So those of you who are looking for wax recommendations, have a scroll through. Remember as well that everyone's going to have their favorite brand, and what works for one therapist might not work for another. So by all means, go out there, try what's out there, see what people are recommending, but take time to learn a system. You know, brand A won't necessarily work the same as brand B. So what I find sometimes is that people will have a play with a wax for, they'll give it a token kind of 20 minutes. They'll try it on one customer. They find they can't get the right working temperature. They can't get it on properly. They can't get it off properly. And they decide it's a rubbish wax. There isn't a brand out there that I've ever worked with on a professional level or consultancy basis or tried myself that is going to knowingly release a rubbish wax. Every wax has its plus points and side things that need practice to get working with. So your brands are there for support. So whether it's by phone or email, whether it's from their trainers, don't write a wax off just because you don't get on with it. You know, give it chance, give it proper time. Speak to the people that are using it, speak to the brand manufacturers, the distributors, get the best out of the product. And if it doesn't work for you, that's fine, but don't write it off just because it doesn't work for you within the first five minutes of using. Kind of brings us on to training and insurance. Now, hopefully it goes without saying that hands-on and accredited training is really important, and it's an insurance requirement here in the UK as well. I'm very much of the opinion, I know Sam is as well, that good training should cover theory as well as practical. So at a bare minimum, you should be looking at things like the personal safety side of things, the anatomy and physiology of the area, client positioning, specific contraindications, aftercare advice, those sorts of things. When you're looking for a training course, now everybody learns differently. Everybody works in a different way. Some people like big classes, some people like small classes, but the kind of things you want to be thinking about: how much practice are you going to get on the day? You know, you're just going to work on one model, you're going to work on multiple models with lots of different hair types, skin types, body types. Are models provided, or do you have to bring your own? That's something to think about as well. How big is the class? Again, like I said, some people like bigger classes, some people like to be able to watch and kind of sit in the corner, and then when it's their turn, fab, but they don't necessarily want to be center of attention. A lot of people prefer small classes where it's just one or two students getting the individual attention from the trainer. So whatever works best for you. What follow-up support is available? Can you get hold of your trainer afterwards? Is there a manual? Are there videos that you can refer back to? And of course, importantly, is the course actually accredited? Can you get insurance from it once you've completed your training? That's something really, really important to think about. And I always recommend as well that you look for a trainer with commercial experience. So by that, I mean someone who's actually doing the treatment on a day-to-day basis in their own salon, because those are the people that are going to be able to advise you, not just on the theory and the practical, but things like pricing, marketing, troubleshooting, the stuff that we deal with as waxers on a day-to-day basis, which kind of brings us onto the last slide, really. Some of the sticky situations, if you like, that we get asked a lot as trainers and waxers. We're going to run through these quite easy because I can see there's lots of questions that have come up. Sam's going to kick off. Now, what I want to say before we start is that we've kind of bundled these all together. They're not all negative. Some of them are just things to consider. And I don't want anyone to go away from here thinking that it's an absolute nightmare if they're not already offering intimate waxing. The vast majority of clients are 99% are absolutely lovely. You know, they arrive on time for their appointments, they get waxed, they follow the aftercare advice, they pay us handsomely. Some of us tip, some of them tip, they'll rebook, they'll come back. But there are some issues that you need to think about, and these are the most common ones that we get asked about. So I'll hand over to Sam to kick off with pregnancy.
Okay, pregnancy. So we get asked this a lot. Can you wax someone if they're pregnant? What insurance companies tend to say now is ask your training provider, which kind of leaves it down to people like me to make the decision. Obviously, happy to have some guidelines too. Personally, I would wax my clients from conception to birth. If your insurance says you can't wax them in the first trimester, you've got to respect that. And then also for me, if any clients had any problems around miscarriages, that sort of thing, I would avoid them in their first trimester. You can always ask for a doctor's note, but I don't know if they're always that willing to give them for things like that. Just things to think about would be that they're going to be a little bit more sensitive when they're pregnant, which is crazy because you'd think your body would prepare you for birth. And also they're going to, towards the third trimester, that it's going to be very hard to kind of get a good stretch because they're going to have to be sat at a kind of 45-degree angle, which is something that you have to do through most of pregnancy anyway. And then also, if you imagine someone sat up and you're trying to get a stretch with their bump, you kind of trying to delve underneath to get the wax off. So you have to use slightly different positioning with them. For things like full leg waxing, you can absolutely wax someone right up until they give birth, but you just lie them on their side instead of on their front. It's quite easy. If you had someone as well that was quite curvy, which obviously we all have clients that are different shapes and sizes, you kind of treat them a bit as if they were pregnant. So, but you could lie them a little bit flatter. So lots of extra stretching, a little bit more care. I'm not going to lie, I have one client and I just book out a little bit of extra time for her. She doesn't know that, we don't discuss it, but when she books in, extend it a little bit, just so I've got some more time, because we kind of work up with the stretching as we go along. And then someone that, say, had reduced mobility as well, I would personally book out a little bit of extra time just to adapt your positions to it. So everything's doable, you just kind of have to plan ahead a little bit more. Hygiene's yours, isn't it, Andy?
Yeah,
I'm going to go right into the poo, but I'm going to stop.
So client positioning is something that we cover on training as well. So if you're kind of looking at this and thinking, well, how on earth do I adjust the position of a client? This is something that we do cover on training, and a lot of good training courses will cover that with you. When it comes to hygiene, fortunately, most clients are hyper aware of where we're going to be working and are very, very conscious of cleanliness when they come in for an intimate wax. But with the best will in the world, you know, sometimes it can be a hot sunny day, people are perhaps perspiring a little bit, or they might have rushed to get to their appointment, and with the best will in the world, sometimes, you know, people aren't as fresh perhaps as we'd like them to be. But there are some simple steps that you can take to prevent any unpleasant surprises. One of the most simple things to do is to put a note on your website to what you expect in terms of clients before their appointment, in terms of how they prepare for their appointment. You can put it in the section about not shaving beforehand, not using any acids in the area for a few days beforehand. And we get kind of very uptight, don't we? We worry about language, about people taking offense. And actually, if you're just very matter of fact about it, people aren't going to take offense. And my website's changed recently, but I used to have a little line on my website that said, as I'm going to be up close and personal with your crown jewels, please arrive as sparkly fresh and as clean as possible. Personal wet wipes are also available at the salon for use before your appointment. And I always used to imagine myself saying it like the Queen, like that as well. So you can just be very, very upfront about it. You can send that out with your reminder emails as well, have it in your frequently asked questions on your website, and make sure that you do have intimate wipes available at the salon for clients to use. You can either have them in the treatment room, you can put them in the bathroom, but make sure you actually tell people what they're for. You know, people aren't mind readers. If you just have a pack of wipes on the bed and you just go, okay, Sandra, so I'm going to leave the room while you get yourself changed, and you know, they're not mind readers. You have to spell it out. So I always say to people, I'm going to leave the room while you get yourself changed, everything off from the waist down for me, your trousers, your underwear, pop your clothes on the chair there, and then just use one of these wipes to freshen up front and back, and put the used wipe in the bin for me when you're done. And if you put it like that, no one's going to take offense.
They're actually quite glad, aren't they? Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Because
they're quite relieved. They're like, oh, I've got a wipe.
Yeah, exactly. Clients don't want clients are very, very conscious. They don't want to make us feel embarrassed. They don't want any embarrassment themselves as well. So the wipes are a great touch. Like I said, either in the treatment room or in the bathroom. I'll pass back over to you now, Sam, because I'm conscious of time as well.
Yeah. So periods, a lot of clients think they can't get waxed on their period, but it's a general consensus. So like Andy said, I have a frequently asked questions section on my website, which says, you know, it just kind of muddles in with all the other questions that people ask. Yes, of course, you can get waxed on your period. I think on my website, I say if you can put a clean tampon in. Moon cups are amazing if your clients can get using those for waxing, because there's no string poking out. Sorry, Andy, TMI for you. And I did have an occasion once, though, where I had an Asian bridal party in, and the girl said, I'm on my period. Oh, not a problem. Have you got a Tampax? And she said, oh, I don't use tampons. And I was devastated. I thought, gosh, that's really rude of me to assume. So she just took her undies off, had a wipe, got on the couch. You know, when you lay down, not much comes out anyway. It was fine. There was no mess. And then we finished the wax and she got dressed again. So, you know, I think we see that many body parts and different things that a bit of blood's not going to kill us, is it really? So, yeah, not a problem. And again, always matter of fact. I always say school matron, kind of like, yes, that's fine, no problem. It's the easiest way to handle most things with waxing.
Yeah, it's about keeping things clinical and professional. And if we're professional and very matter of fact about things and we're not fazed by it, then our clients aren't going to be fazed about it either. Which again, very nicely brings us onto the topic of erections. You can't do male intimate waxing and expect to never encounter an erection. At some point in your waxing career, it's going to happen. Sometimes things pop up and say hello, and it can be for any number of reasons. It could be because we're working in a sensitive area, we're putting cold cleanser on the skin followed by warm wax. It could even be that the client is just ultra nervous, and a lot of guys will tell you the more you think about something, the more likely it is that it's going to happen. So sometimes things do pop up to say hello. They usually disappear when you take the first strip of wax off, but not always. You know, sometimes things are up and down like the grand old Duke of York throughout the treatment. And what we have to remember is that it's far more embarrassing for the client than it is for us as therapists. And I generally tend to ignore things. I will just carry on working. I might move to a different area if necessary, but I generally just carry on working unless the client apologizes. And sometimes they do. They'll say, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. And in that case, all you need to do is just acknowledge the situation. Just say, don't worry about it. Happens. And you can kind of physically see the client relaxing and not so worried about it. Occasionally you'll get people asking beforehand. They might email or they might phone and they'll say, you know, I'm worried about being naked. What happens if I do get an erection? And again, just have a stock answer prepared. Just say, don't worry, it happens. We're just going to ignore it and carry on working. And that's enough to kind of put the client's mind at rest. Inappropriate requests is something that people do worry about a little bit as well. I kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier. I have to say again, like I said, 99% of clients they're just there to be hair free. That's all they want. They just want to be hair free. There are some kind of simple steps that you can take again as a salon or a therapist to look after yourself. So one of the easiest things to do is to move to an online booking system where you can take a deposit or capture the card details of a client before they book in for a treatment. And for me, that kind of put off the weirdos, if you like, before they even got through the salon door. You can weed most people out before they even reach that booking stage. And that idea of being able to take a deposit or capture the card details is a very efficient way of doing that. If you haven't got that facility, what I would say is don't take a booking from a client who withholds any information. So if they don't want to give you a name or they don't want to give you a contact number, for example, that could perhaps be a red flag as well. Be aware of red flag questions as well. So you might get an email or a text or a phone from a client. And like I said, questions like, oh, what happens if I get an erection, or I'm worried about being naked? Those are normal questions. But if people keep on about it, they keep asking, yeah, but what are you going to do about it? You know, do you have any distraction techniques or things like that? You know, trust your gut instinct. If a client is asking the same question over and over, just cut them off and just say, you know, I'm sorry, I'm really busy. I'm going to have to end the call now. I'll give you a buzz back tonight or tomorrow or whenever. Basically deflect them. Tell them to have a look at your website, have a list of frequently asked questions on there. A good idea as well is to have a statement on your website or your consultation form about your policy for dealing with inappropriate behavior. And I always say as well, trust your gut reaction. It's there for a reason. If you don't feel comfortable treating a client, if you don't feel comfortable booking somebody in, don't book them in. It's as simple as that. You're under no obligation to treat a client who's making you feel uncomfortable. And if they do make it to the treatment room and their behavior is inappropriate, you just stop the treatment. Have a little prepared sentence. I tend to say, I have to say, it's only happened a handful of times in 20 years, but I tend to say to people, okay, you know what, Sam, your behavior is inappropriate. This is about professional treatment. So I'm going to leave the room. I'd like you to get yourself changed, and then I want you to leave, please. And you kind of practice it a few times so it trips off the tongue nice and easily. It should be incredibly rare that you have to use this, I have to say. And like I said, come back to the fact that it's incredibly rare that you will get a client booking in for the wrong reasons. This is all stuff that we cover on the training course as well. We look at personal safety. It's an area that I know a lot of people have concerns about, but it's really something that is incredibly rare. So I don't want anyone going away from the seminar today worrying that it's going to be something that happens all the time, because it just doesn't. Okay, we'll finish off. I know we've got some questions. We'll leave this slide up for a moment, just so if you've got any questions that you want to ask us and we run out of time today, you can reach us. These are our website details: Facebook, Instagram. I've got a men's intimate waxing video up on YouTube. If you search for Axiom Wax Academy, you'll be able to find that there. I've pinned at the top of my Facebook page, so if you go to facebook.com/flernmalewaxing, I've pinned the video to the top of the page there with a link, and Sam's details are there as well. So I believe Amanda's going to come back in now, and we've got a couple of questions I can see that have come up on the side there. So I know we haven't got long, but hopefully. Hello
guys. Thank
Hello.
you so much for that talk. That was absolutely brilliant. There's been an absolute outpouring of love for you guys on the chat and on Facebook, which has been amazing. I think this has been really helpful for people. We are a little bit short on time, so I'm just going to ask you a few quick questions. One was, which hot wax would you recommend, please, for intimate waxing?
Andy? Are we allowed? I don't really know where we stand with. I know what I use, but I don't want to.
So both myself and Sam have worked with various brands over the years. I currently work with Ashmira Botanica and Salon System, both of which are amazing brands, get great results. But as I said earlier, what works for one therapist might not work for another. So there have been loads of suggestions in the comments section on the right. As I said, I recommend Ashmira and Salon System, but there are lots and lots out there.
I also used. Oh, sorry, go on.
Oh no, go on, Sam. Sorry.
I was going to say my old favourite actually was one by Depilev called Cerezyme as well. That was a really good wax. Started a little bit hot, but it just really got the hairs out. But now I use Ashmira and Salon System, same as that.
We've had a lot of questions from people about if you've got any tips for clients who are particularly sensitive.
I've got a good one actually. I worked with a hypnotherapist, and he did a recording that you can play to your clients.
Oh, wow.
Well, it's called Relax and Wax Therapy. I will find the link and send it somewhere. And he did a recording that he literally played in headphones because he's a hypnotherapist. He teaches it as well, so he's a really good hypnotherapist. So that was one idea. And then also tell them not to drink coffee before they come, which is I need 3 to get going in the morning. And alcohol as well can sensitize you a little bit. When you're due on your period, you're more sensitive. When you're on your period, you're more sensitive. Andy, anything to add to that?
Quick, efficient, and stretching. I don't like the numbing creams that are on the market. I don't think we can use them in the UK anyway, because any kind of topical anesthesia is controlled by the Medicines Act, so we can't actually use them as therapists. I also find, in my own experience of having tried them in the past myself, mixed results. I would always much rather have great stretch in the skin, great technique, nice and quick, and that ultimately is going to be the best form of pain relief that you can get.
We had a question from Amanda Green, who said that she stopped offering waxing at the beginning of the year, but obviously there's going to be a huge demand for waxing services once lockdown is over and everything's reopened. She's asked if you've got any advice on how she can start to speed up her technique, seeing as she hasn't been doing it for a few months.
Practice. Watch videos. That's probably your main things, but it's very hard to practice when you've got no one to do it on if you're isolating at the moment.
Yeah.
But there are lots of videos online. You know, if you go on to YouTube, as I said, we've got videos on there ourselves. There are lots of trainers, different brands that have got practice, refresher videos. That's a good place to start. Refresher training, I would imagine pretty much every brand and trainer out there is going to be flinging open their door wide for therapists to come and get some extra training. So have a look and see what's out there. I know a lot of brands are doing brand awareness training as well, so that's a nice way of kind of staying in touch with what they're doing, keeping up to date with the products, the way that their waxes work, and all of those sorts of things can help with your technique and your speed.
Yeah.
And I think we have time for one last question. Emma Smith would like to know how you guys go about widening your male intimate waxing audience and your trans intimate waxing audience.
Okay, so I'll do trans. Trans, I would, I've got a trans beauty page on my website, which hopefully in a few years' time we won't need, because we shouldn't have to kind of do things like that. They should be accepted everywhere. But for trans, I would first of all make sure you're really, really good with your trans awareness, so you don't say the wrong thing. So the internet's a great source of knowledge for that. I am going to be doing a course on trans awareness when we're out of lockdown. And local groups, online as well is a thing that we can do at the moment, so Facebook groups. And then when we're allowed back out again, find where your local trans groups meet, maybe go and offer to do a few leg waxes for them, or a talk or a demo, or I went to the local LGBT foundation and did some free eyebrows for a day. So that was a good intro. Andy, men?
So for the guys, Instagram is a great place to start. Know your hashtags, know what the people are looking for. Remember, waxing is a very visual treatment. So before and after shots, I know you can't do before and after shots of intimate waxing, but before and after shots of general body waxing are very useful. Short boomerang videos of the wax coming off, pictures of the stick with nostril hair on, all of these sorts of things are the kinds of things that people absolutely love, and it helps take some of the mystery away from manscaping as well. I mentioned hashtags. Don't just put hashtag waxing, hashtag male waxing, because those are exactly the kind of hashtags that we as beauty salons and therapists use. So you're going to attract a great beauty therapist audience, but you want to be tapping into the hashtags that your demographic are using. So for example, if you want to tap into the sports community, things like hashtag chest day, hashtag cycle style, hashtag fit fab, all of those sorts of things, which are the hashtags that you're the potential demographic that you want to tap into are already using, you're then going to show up when they type that in, when they search for that as well. I think, Amanda, I'm very conscious of time, so perhaps
yes,
if we go over to your Facebook page, I'm happy, I'm sure Sam will be happy as well, to answer any questions that come up on
that would be amazing
on the Facebook comment section, because I'm aware there's been a lot of really great questions and we haven't had chance to answer a lot of them.
No, guys, this has been brilliant. And if you could go to the Facebook page and answer some questions for people, that would be amazing. Sam, just to let you know, a couple of people have asked if they can pre-register for your course. So it might be worth putting something out in your social about that.
What, the trans awareness?
The trans awareness course, yeah. But thank you so much, Andy and Sam. This has been so informative. We've had an amazing amount of viewers, and I think everyone's really appreciated it. Everyone said it's been really informative. So thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it. And for anybody who's watching, this will be live on Professional Beauty's YouTube really soon as well. So if you want to go back and look at the slides or listen to anything again, it will be available. But otherwise, thank you so much, guys, and I'll see you outside of lockdown.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.